Hey Sophia,
Hi.
how are you today?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing good, thank you. So Sophia, your new album Apocrypha is to be out on April 11th. So would you like to tell me a bit on the songwriting and the production that goes behind this new album?
Yeah, so it was all just recorded in my little apartment as usual. Nothing super fancy, just some USB plug-in tools that I have,
Mm.
and my little Focusrite interface right
Oh,
here.
good.
And yeah, so I just plug in my mic, I plug in my guitar and my little mini USB keyboard, and we're good to go. And I kind of record it in pieces, just
Hmm.
kind of going through the different songs on the album, making sure everything is fairly consistent throughout, but I'm not like extremely deliberate about it the way a lot of artists are. A lot of things kind of happen off the cuff, and then I go back and I fix things and make sure that everything, again, sounds fairly consistent and not like I was recording it just
Hmm.
on the go without, much care being taken throughout the
Yeah.
process. So I try to make sure everything sounds fairly stable and professional and high quality. And I used a different process than I normally do for this album because I started recording it in late 2021 and then I kind
Hmm.
of plateaued and didn't really, I felt like I had hit a point where I just wasn't getting any better and I wasn't able to make the music that I wanted to make with the skill that I currently had.
Hmm.
So I took some time off from recording the album to take voice lessons and practice guitar more and learn
Hmm.
more about like the keyboard. So that took some time away from creating the album, but it allowed me to build my skills up and make sure that the album was an accurate reflection of the music that
Yeah.
I'm capable of creating at this point in my life. And I'm very proud of the result. And obviously, I do think that eventually I can do better
Hmm.
because you're always learning and you're always growing. That's
Yeah.
the goal as an artist. And yeah, everything eventually came together last year. I
Yeah.
for mixing and mastering, my first professionally mixed and mastered album. And yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
in
Fantastic.
brief the story of
Yeah.
recording Apocrypha and
Fan-
generally how I go about recording my music.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And this Apocrypha has some kind of concept or a theme behind it.
Yeah, it does. It's about this character who has been indoctrinated into a cult that's taken over his city.
Hmm.
Well, they've been in control for several hundred years, and he's starting to question his position in the city government, in the cult that rules the town, and he isn't really sure whether he should continue down the path that's been preset for him or if he should take another path, the road less traveled, and figure out his own life and figure out how to live according to his own desires and his own morals, his own values. So
Hmm.
he has a lot of both internal conflict within himself and external conflict with the other characters around him who are trying to influence him in one way or another.
Fantastic. And speaking of the cover art for this album, would you like to tell me a bit on the making of this cover art?
Yes, so this cover art, I believe, is the 1834 painting The
Hmm.
Deluge by John Martin. I believe it to be so because I'm not quite sure about the date. If I remember correctly, it's 1834. So it's The Deluge by John Martin, and I chose that piece of art because I love using historical pieces of art in general for my album art because
Hmm.
it gives the music a nostalgic feel and it allows listeners to be drawn in by their other associations with this type of
Hmm.
artwork and they begin to associate that style with my music. And I just feel like the colors, the artwork style, that all works very perfectly with my music because it's this blend of elegance and intensity. So you have the nice, pretty, elegant, older, more traditional looking parts of it, and then you have
Yeah.
the rage and anger and emotion that slaps you in the face. So yeah, The Deluge by John Martin was a perfect choice for Apocrypha, I think, because
Hmm.
it represents the tumult and the crazy turmoil that the character is going through on his journey, but it also represents the different styles of music that clash and play with each other and are kind of constantly in tension and
Mm.
blending together, going in and out of different styles throughout the album.
Yeah.
That's mostly why I chose that piece of art.
Fantastic, fantastic. And had the pleasure to listen to this entire album and had to say it's an amazing work from you. Great songs, 12 amazing songs, beautifully done from the start to the end. It has a diverse genre that is blended inside this album. I would say symphony, gothic, and extreme metal. So everything is fused together and it has come out quite beautiful. So thank you so much for putting up an awesome album this year. And as a creator, how do you feel about the outcome of this album?
First of all, thank you so much. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I feel very, very proud of this album. It's definitely some of my best work yet.
Mm.
Definitely leagues ahead of my earlier Exiled Hope albums, which didn't have the same songwriting or performance quality or production quality that Apocrypha has. So
Mm.
if you've been following me for a while and you think you know my art, well, think again because I've leveled up
Mm.
a lot. And this album is kind of a rebirth of Exiled Hope in a way because it's so different and
Mm.
so far ahead of anything else that I've done. So I'm extremely proud of it. Of course, there are parts of it where I look back and I think, well, I still don't quite have the skills to pull that off, but it's the best it's going to be for now. So I'm proud of it for what it is. But of course, we're going to keep moving forward and going to keep
Mm.
learning, going to keep building new
Yeah,
skills. Yeah.
fantastic, fantastic. And I know making videos takes a lot of money, but are you having plans to come up with an official music video for this album?
I would love to. I'm not really sure how I would pull that off yet, but I would love to make animated music videos for this
Hmm.
album and for subsequent Exiled Hope albums because I feel like the story, the very sort of dark fairy tale, dystopian fiction
Mm.
aspects of the story lend themselves very well to that sort of medium. And when I was a
Yes.
kid, I wanted to be an animator. That was probably my first love, even
Yeah.
before music. I thought animation was really cool. And so I feel like it would be a very neat little union of different mediums of
Mm.
art that I've enjoyed throughout my life if I were to do some animated music
Mm.
videos.
Yeah, fantastic. And the release date is almost a month, over a month now. But are you having some kind of plans for the day of the release?
Plans for the day of release? I'm not sure actually because I'm in law school and things tend to get chaotic around April because
Mm.
we're going into final exam season and
Yeah.
finishing up papers. So, I mean, I'm definitely going to do some social media posts about it. So you can follow me on social media at legally_metal. And yeah, I'll be posting about it on release day. I'll be telling everyone to
Mm.
listen to it. But other than that, I probably have class. I don't remember what day of the week April 11th is, but most likely I'm going to have class, going to have to write some papers and study for exams. So it's going to be a fairly mundane day in the Exiled
Yeah.
Hope camp. But yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. And speaking of touring, being a solo artist, one person band, do you have plans to do touring some part of time in this year or probably in the future?
No plans to tour for Exiled Hope because I write the music more with the intention of syncing it to film, TV, video games. I
Mm.
write it with the intention of potentially it like the music could feature as a soundtrack for a TV show or a movie or a game, and I write things very, like I said, sort of off the cuff, and it's difficult to replicate in a live setting because a lot of it is very improvisational, and I kind of play with the different parts as I go. Like, not to say that I don't take the music seriously, but working on music for me is a very playful process. Like
Mm.
I kind of go into it thinking, oh, I'm gonna take these little aspects of this song that I like and then juxtapose them with other aspects of these other songs that I like. And I'm gonna see how those play together and how those work. And it's a very experimental process. And I don't always come up with things that are easy to replicate live
Yeah.
because there's a lot of I kind of use my DAW, my Logic Pro, as
Mm.
as an instrument in itself with all the guitar layers, the vocal layers, all the different keyboard layers. So it just doesn't really lend itself to live performance very well, but I think it does potentially lend itself to soundtrack and sync work. So
Mm.
that's really the goal of my music. I know a lot of metal artists are more on the touring side, and it's kind of unusual for a metal artist to be into
Mm.
sync like that. But that's definitely something that sets Exiled Hope apart from other projects, I would say.
Fantastic, fantastic. And earlier this month, you also released a collaboration album with Steel Forge. I was speaking to Steel Forge; they are very happy that they have worked with you in the collaboration. So, how do you feel about working with Steel Forge, and how
Oh,
was the experience?
they were fantastic. We've been friends for a while, so I started following them in 2019, and I kind of followed their work for a few years, and then they reached out to me on Instagram in 2022 and asked
Mm.
me if I wanted to be their new guitarist. But the issue is they're in the UK and I'm in the
Yeah,
US, so I was like, oh, I would love to, but I can't right now, but we can. I'm always open to collaborating with you, and we could always work on something together. So that's kind of how Realm of the Exiled started. I started making these little guitar demos and sending them over, and then we kind of built the EP from there. Like I was creating all the instrumental parts, and
mm,
they were kind of adding their own instrumental parts and their own vocal parts to it, and it kind of it started out very organically, and then we kind of decided on the direction later on once most of the songs were done. We were like, okay, we have this EP in progress, and it's a collaboration between the two of us. So what do we want
mm,
to do with this? And we decided, oh, it would be really cool to make this a concept EP that blends the Exiled Hope and Steel Forge concepts because they have their own little character, the Forger. And so we blended those stories together, and we created sort of a midquill album, like a
yeah,
kind of a sequel to my work, but also kind of not. That follows Hope on her journey through the underworld after she's executed in the first album, the first Exiled Hope album, and she finds her way through. She finds her way through. She meets up with the Forger, who's also trapped in the underworld, and they fight their demons together and come out on the other side. And along the way, Hope learns to trust other people, and she learns that she doesn't only need to rely on herself if she's going to
mm.
get through tough situations.
Fantastic, fantastic. And speaking about your musical journey, you came up with your self-titled album in 2020, followed with the Lonely Storyteller EP in 2021, followed by the Angel of Greytown in 2021 again, and earlier this year with the collaboration with Steel Forge, and now in April you coming with Apocrypha, your new full-length album again. So, how do you feel about this journey that you have traveled so far?
I'm really proud of it. I mean, there are a lot of things that I would change about it if I could go back because hindsight
Mm,
is 2020. But
mm,
I do feel like a lot of things kind of slowly snowballed and built on each other, and everything eventually happened the way it was meant to. Back when I first recorded the debut album Exiled Hope, and then the two subsequent Exiled Hope releases following that, I didn't even know that you needed to mix and master an
mm,
album to get it sounding good. So that was definitely, if I could go back and redo those albums, I would definitely fix that up. And
mm,
I also just wasn't as good of a musician as I am now because I took some time to learn new things and develop my skills. And again, those first few albums, like all of my music, were very playful, perhaps more so than the new stuff, which is recorded with more intention. But definitely on the first few Exiled Hope releases, I was playing with a bunch of different influences and just kind of seeing how I wrote and how my songwriting developed.
mhm,
And that informed how I wrote songs on Apocrypha because I knew I had discovered what I'm naturally good at and the things that may not sound as natural for me and that just don't really work for the Exiled Hope sound. So it's kind of Apocrypha is kind of became this balance of, working with my natural skill set, but also learning and trying new things and expanding my musical horizons. So
Mm.
it's yeah, what I'd say when you're going through that process of figuring out who you are as a musician, it's really important to figure out what you're naturally good at and then build off of that instead of trying to sound like someone else. Because it's great, everyone has their influences and everyone has their own like aspirations
Yeah.
within the music industry and what they want to do as artists. But it can get discouraging when you're just constantly trying to sound like someone else, and it doesn't come off naturally because it's not what you're naturally good at.
Mhm.
So that's not to say don't experiment and don't continue to learn and try new things, but you know, you're always going to sound most like yourself when you thoroughly understand what you're good at.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And you also composed music for a couple of short films. And
Yeah.
does this lead to a future where you can take over a movie kind of thing in the future?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. I recorded the soundtrack for this indie horror film, What Happens After Midnight, and that film has
Mhm.
hit 1 million views on YouTube, and I'm so happy. That's one of my most successful
Beautiful.
works yet. Like, obviously, I wasn't deeply involved in creating the film, but the soundtrack has received amazing, reception, amazing
Mhm.
reactions. People love it. And I definitely want to continue more in that direction and continue to score films because some of my first exposure to music was in the context of film. So
Mhm.
in the back of my mind, when I'm composing music, I'm always thinking, okay, like how would this sound if set to some sort of visual? Like what's
Mhm.
the visual sensory aspect that's informing the music? So filming or composing music for films comes sort of naturally to me because I already write my music with that in mind. That's already kind of the intention behind it.
Mhm.
So when I was asked to score that film, I was like, oh my God, this is a dream come true. This is so cool. I can't wait
Yeah.
to, fully expand in this direction and really push those boundaries and make the music fit
Mhm.
the story and have it become a storytelling device for an actual story that is being played out in film. And there's another film that's coming out hopefully next year or maybe even later this year. It's called Hallowed Paths, and
Mhm.
I believe it's a retelling of a Finnish folktale with some modern twists. And
Yeah.
the soundtrack to that sounds completely different from What Happens After Midnight, but that's the fun of recording
Mhm.
soundtracks. You get to play with different styles and different things you don't normally do in the context of metal. So yeah, Hallowed Paths is going to be a lot of fun to put out too.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. And would you like to tell some of the highlight moments of your career with Excel Hope so far?
I think Apocrypha is going to be one of them. And I would say that this is kind of a smaller one, but the release of the Blood of the Ancients lyric video. I started making lyric videos for my music on
Yeah.
my YouTube
Yeah.
channel, and that video got 1,000 views on the first day, and I was like, wow, okay, so
Mhm.
I'm clearly moving in the right direction with making these videos because
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm not capable of making animated music videos yet, and I don't have the budget for like live action music videos yet,
Yeah.
but I'm able to teach myself how to make lyric videos and to accompany my music that way and give it that sort of visual element. So lyric videos became this fun little way of bringing the concepts to life in a very subtle artistic way.
Mhm.
So they're not as they're not as bombastic and big and eye catching as a music video would be, but they still work to serve the purpose of the song and kind of tell you the story and bring the story forward a lot more.
Mhm.
So I would
Yeah.
say the release of the Blood of the Ancients lyric video was a high point in my career as well.
Mhm.
Let's see, so that, and then obviously the film scoring opportunities, and actually, I would probably put Hallowed Paths even before What Happens After Midnight in terms of it being a highlight of my musical career because that was the first time that I had been asked to do like a bigger budget indie
Yeah.
film, and obviously it's still in development, it hasn't been released yet, but that was the first time I'd really like clicked with a director and understood their vision, and they understood
Yeah,
my music, and they were able to use that understanding to bring out some of my best performances and to ensure that the performances worked well with the film that they were creating. So that
fantastic.
was clearly a high point. Yeah, I would, and other than that, I would say the best is yet to come, and I'm really looking forward to the release of Apocrypha and seeing how people react to that.
Fantastic, Sophia. And Sophia, finally, any message that you have for the fans around the world?
Thank you so much for enjoying my music. I know that I'm involved in a lot of projects and it can be hard to keep up with things sometimes, but follow me on Instagram and threads at legally_metal to keep up with my musical journey and continue following the adventures that are yet to come. And obviously, make sure that you stream and download Apocrypha when it comes out on April 11th.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And Sophia, I want to thank you so much for giving me today this wonderful opportunity to have you on this interview. A real pleasure to talk to you. And thanks for Apocrypha for the album to be out on April 11th. A fantastic album, like I said earlier. Totally loving it. I know once it is out, a lot of people will come fall in love with this new album. And thanks for all the musical awesomeness and for the work and the amount of time you have given to the metal fraternity around the world. We thank you for that and take care and have a good day.
Thank you so much. You too.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.